Welcome to NC Allies, a local link to improve effective services. The North Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention's Community Programs Online Application Training. The North Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention partners with the Juvenile Crime Prevention Councils in each county to mobilize community leaders, both locally and statewide, to reduce and prevent juvenile crime. DJJDP allocates approximately $23 million to these councils annually, and your local Juvenile Crime Prevention Council has received a JCPC allocation in order to aid in building an effective, research-supported continuum of services within your community to address the needs of at-risk, undisciplined, and adjudicated youth. This training module is designed to assist the North Carolina County Community Program user with creating an NCID account in order to register as an NC Allies user and log into NC Allies in order to complete an application for funding. North Carolina Identity Service, or NCID, is the standard identity management and access service provided to state, local, business, and citizen users by the Office of Information Technology Services. NCID enables its customers to achieve an elevated degree of security and access control to real-time resources such as customer-based applications and information retrieval. During this training module, we will begin to create an NCID account. We will then use our new NCID account to register as a user of NC Allies so that we may log in to NC Allies and complete our online application for funding. So let's begin by entering the following address into your internet browser. Now that we've gained access to North Carolina's Identity Management website, we may register for a new NCID account by clicking on the Register link. If you already have an NCID account with a user type of local government or state agency, you may go directly to the North Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice's website and click on the NC Allies link. Enter the login ID, username, and password used for NCID and click the login button. This will take you to a screen to register with the application. Once you register, you will receive a verification email. So it's very important to have a current email address in the North Carolina Identity Management System. For new users, however, let's begin by registering. Click on the link. If you need to register now as a local government or state agency, you may do so by selecting the appropriate user type at this time. However, it's important not to choose individual. For purposes of this training, we will be a business user. Most nonprofits will be business users of the system. Select Business User. Click on the Continue button. Confirm your selection by selecting Business Account and Submit. You are now ready to create your user business account. You must activate this account within 3 days after registering for it, or it will be deleted. In order to do this, you must open the email message that is sent to you by the NCID notifications. Once you open the email, you will click on the URL link. I'll show you this in a moment. A couple of other things worth pointing out here. The telephone number must be typed in with the format of having an area code. Also, all lines with an asterisk are required. Now that we've completed the information to create our business account, there are a couple of things to note. First of all, making sure that your email address is correct. And then secondly, note the zip code. The zip code you enter as part of your business address will be used by NCID to default your county location. Therefore, be sure to enter a zip code from the county where your program operates. Now, let's enter a password. Note that there are rules about your password. Your password cannot contain more than 3 characters in consecutive and sequential order. There are a couple of things worth noting here as well. Notice the words that we must type. If you have trouble reading the words, hit the refresh link, or you can get an audio version of this. However, remember to make sure that your speakers are on your computer. Password policy requires that you set up challenge questions. Select a question and give your response. This will help you should you forget your email password and login information. Once you've entered the challenge questions, create your account by clicking on the Create button. Now an email has been sent to our email address that we disclosed in filling out our registration. Now we must open our email account. Let's do so by closing this window. Log into your email account. Upon creating your NCID business account, an activation email will be sent to your specified email address from NCID notifications. Open the email. Click on the link within the email to activate your new account. If you don't receive an email in your box, then try looking in your junk and/or your spam mail folder. If you still have not received an email within an hour, please contact its.incidents@its.nc.gov. You have now registered with the North Carolina Identity Management System. Close the window. You are now ready to register for access to the NCID's online application system. The next module will take you through the steps for registering with NCID's and beginning your program agreement. The purpose of this training module is to first register for access to NCID's and then secondly complete the NCID's application for funding. Upon completion of this training module, the user will be able to register for access to NCID's and create and view the following. The user will be able to create a program and/or search for existing programs in the database. The user will also be able to identify and create a sponsoring agency, add a program, to the sponsoring agency by creating components as well, adding summaries and narratives within the program agreement, measurable objectives, budget narratives, looking at sources of program revenue in the program agreement, submitting the program agreement application, and then learning how to print all sections of the program agreement application. We'll also discuss how to utilize NC Allies in tracking the decision process on the application. So let's begin by entering the following address into your internet browser, or you can go to DJJDP's website and click on the NC Ally links. I'll show you where they are. Let's look at the DJJDP website and see where we can gain access to NC Allies. First of all, take a look at this link. It highlights in red when we hit the link. Click on the link and you will gain access to NC Allies. This link may only be on our website for a temporary period of time, so there are other ways to access NC Allies. First of all, go to the main menu and click on Juvenile Crime Prevention Councils. Highlight Juvenile Crime Prevention Council Program Agreement Information. Click on Program Agreement Information. And you will notice here there is a link to get to NC Allies. So let's begin to register for NC Allies. Click on the link. Enter in your login ID and password that you just created in the NCID system. Click on the login button. This takes you to the screen to register with the application. Verify the information and choose JCPC program from the account type drop-down. Create your account. A verification email has now been sent to your email account. So go check your email. Log into your email account and look for an email from the DJJDP Application Support Network. The email will identify your login name and tell you that you or someone pretending to be you created an account with this email address. Click on the link and this will return you to the NC Allies login screen. Click on the link. Now your registration with NC Allies is complete. You can begin to query the system or begin your online application for applying for JCPC funds. Begin by using the search feature in the application. Highlight Begin a Program Agreement and then search for an existing program. I would suggest that you use a couple of letters here to query the search. Notice that I got quite a few programs listed here, a total of 33. You may scroll through to see whether or not you find your program if you are a returning user. One thing I want to point out here, if there are multiple people from one program or sponsoring agency that want to review information about a program after the information has been entered, they'll need to start by registering with NCID and also by registering with NC Allies. And one important thing to note here is that they'll need to have the DJJDP funding ID number. The DJJDP funding ID number is automatically generated when the program is first created. The person who first creates this program needs to write it down. When new users from the same program type into the DJJDP funding ID field and select the Select button, then they're able to access and gain entry into an existing program's information. Once associated, users may view and edit existing records. Let's take a look at what that may look like. I have entered a DJJDP funding ID number. Select the Select button. Notice that I have completed the DJJDP funding ID number. Select the Select icon. Note that I am now associated in a group role with this particular program. For first-time users, however, let's go back to the previous screen that we left. Let's begin a program agreement. Once again, let's begin by searching for an existing program and querying the system. I have found no programs with my program name, so let's click on the Create a New Program icon. Now we're ready to begin entering information about our sponsoring agency. First, let's query the sponsoring agency. We can do so by adding a couple of letters and then clicking on the Search Sponsors. Our sponsoring agency was not found. A couple of things I want to point out here. You'll notice throughout use of the application that there are small little buttons, blue buttons, icons that you can click on to give you more information about the field that you're trying to enter information on. Let's move on with creating our sponsoring agency. Click on the Enter Sponsoring Agency link. I am now ready to enter information about my sponsoring agency. There are a few things worth noting here. First of all, take a look at the blue buttons. These icons will assist you as you move through the application with definition of the fields. Also, there's a nice little feature here that you can click if the physical address is the same as the mailing address, and the information will pre-fill in the fields without having to type twice. Once I complete all my fields, click on the Save button. The sponsoring agency information screen appears with a message indicating the information has saved successfully. Now you are ready to add a program to your sponsoring agency. Click the Add Program link. Note that the sponsoring agency will already be pre-filled from either selecting a sponsoring agency previously entered or from following the Create a Sponsoring Agency steps that I just reviewed. Note that the county will fill by default to the county of the zip code that you entered during your NCID registration. This field can be changed by clicking the drop-down arrow to the right of the county name. Let's complete this section by completing the name of our program agreement. Enter the name of your new program. If you are a multi-county program, please be mindful that you're required to turn in multi-county program agreements in addition to submission of this information in NCID. If you are a multi-county program, check this box. Click the Save button, and now the program screen will appear with a message indicating that the information has been saved successfully. Note that there are two buttons at the bottom of the screen, the Edit and Delete button. The Edit button is used to make changes to screens where data has previously been entered. Remember to click the Save button after making changes. The Delete button is used to remove information. There is security in place to keep users from deleting records that have additional information linked to them. For example, users cannot delete a component record if it has a measurable objective already created. The measurable objectives would have to be deleted first. This security prevents users from deleting the entire record when they only need to delete one part. Notice the DJJDP funding ID number. This number is a number that is automatically generated when the program is first created. So it's important that whoever first creates the program needs to write down the funding ID number in case more than one person from your program or sponsoring agency needs to view or edit this program record. Now we are ready to add the program agreement for this sponsoring agency and this program. Click on Add Program Agreement. Enter the information in all the required fields on this screen. There are 5 places that checkboxes are provided to ease data entry. Users may check the Same As box to automatically pre-fill information that is the same as information previously entered. Notice that the information pre-filled is the same as the sponsoring agency mailing address. Now that we have entered the information regarding the funding period, the funding source, and information about the program manager, the contact person, and the physical officer for the program, we are ready to save our information. Scroll down to the bottom of the screen and click Save. The program agreement information screen appears with a message indicating that the information has saved successfully. This is just preliminary information about your program agreement. Remember that you must add component and budget information to your program agreement as well. Notice the Edit and Print Preview and Delete buttons at the bottom of the screen. Users can return to this screen to print at any time. Let's move forward now by adding component information. Click on Add Component. You are now ready to complete the component information within your program agreement. Let me point out a couple of things here. First of all, asterisk next to the field means that information is required in those fields. Users are not able to save or continue to new screens until all the required fields have been completed. Also notice that informational buttons are still available on the screen. By clicking on the informational button, you can receive information about what should be entered in a particular field. Let's move on with completion of our program component information. We have named our program, and now we wish to identify the program type. Select the program type that best describes your program. Programs are divided into several domains: skill building, restorative justice, residential counseling, assessment, and structured programming. Select the one that best fits your type of program. Information regarding definition of programs can be found on our website under JCPC Policy and Forms. Now let's give a brief description of the type of program in our component. Note that as I type, we began with 3,000 characters, and as I begin typing, the countdown begins. Now that we have completed the component information, go to the bottom of the screen and save your information. The component information screen appears with a message indicating that the information has saved successfully. If any of the statistical information needs to be modified, click on the Edit button and make the changes. But remember to click the Save button after making the changes. Users may repeat these steps to add additional components. Now that we have completed statistical information about our program, we are ready to complete summaries and narratives, measurable objectives, and then finally look at our complete program agreement and print and preview it. In addition to this, we'll need to handle the fiscal part of our program agreement by looking at the budget narrative and sources of program revenue later in the training. Let's complete the additional information about our component by addressing the Summaries and Narratives tab. Clicking on the Summaries and Narratives tab brings us to this web page. There are a few things I wish to point out on the Summaries and Narrative tab. First of all, take a look at the action column and note that there's a show link, edit link, and a create link. When we first open up the Summaries and Narrative tab, all the actions available in the action column are show and create because there's no information in the system yet. For purposes of this training, I have already entered information into the Statement of Problem category. Let's look at the Show link. Notice that the Show link allows users to view the information that has been entered for a particular section while on the same screen. When the Show link is clicked, it displays the information entered and the link changes from Show to Hide. Users can click the Hide button to hide the additional information displayed when the Show button is clicked. Now, let's go to the Statement of Problem where I've already entered information and edit. Notice the red icon under the Complete column. I have entered in concise terminology a description of how my program will address the continuum of need in the county. Once I've completed the information, click Mark this item as complete and save. As the items are marked as complete, the red exclamation symbol changes to a green check symbol to indicate that the item is now complete. Let's move on and create information in each one of the sections. Let's move on to Measurable Objectives. Click on the Measurable Objectives tab. Note that standardized measures for your program type will populate into the screen. For purposes of this training, I have already edited the first 3 measures and indicated the percentage of youth that I feel based on my program's history and program outcomes as being good measures for my program. Edit each one of the measures by clicking the Edit and indicating the percentage of youth that your program will satisfy this measure. Click the Save icon. Complete this action for each measurable objective until you have fully populated the percentage column with percentages to satisfy your measures. Note that I have an opportunity to add an optional measurable objective. I have done so here. These optional measures will populate below the standardized measures. Let's move on to Print Preview. Click on the Print Preview tab. Place your cursor on the first line. Clicking this section here will enable you to print preview the entire document that we've completed thus far. Notice that you may also be able to print sections, whether it's statistical, summary, or narrative sections. Let's click on the first line here and take a look at our document. We are able now to look at each section that we've completed thus far. Scrolling down here to show you what we've done. At this point, you're also able to save the document in your hard drive. Let's move on with completion of the budgetary items that are in our program agreement. Now let's complete a budget for our program agreement. Know that from any of these tabs in the Component Information section, users can access the budget narrative by clicking on the budget narrative link. Let's click on the budget narrative link. As we move through the completion of the budget, there are rules and safeguards established in the application that will guide you should you make errors in your budget. Let's begin to complete a budget, and I'll prompt you on some of those rules. For those of you that are continuation program providers, please know that though the screen looks quite different from any budget format that you've used, the end product will result in a budget narrative and a line item budget in a format that you are accustomed to. The line item summary budget is simultaneously completed as you move through the line item budget. Notice too that once we begin to complete our line item budget, that the 190 professional services line will always need a contract attached to the program agreement. Also note that if there's entry into any of the 500 items, a cash match is required. The cash match percentage required for any capital purchase aligns with the percentage match required by your county to support any DJJDP JCPC funds. For example, if you're submitting a program agreement application in Wake County, the match needed to support your JCPC awarded fund is 30%. Likewise, any DJJDP funds utilized to support any capital purchase will need to have a similar cash match of at least 30%. There's a formula that I'll share with you later on as we move through a capital purchase and a budget line item. Let's begin adding items to our budget by clicking on the item drop-down arrow to select the items to add to our budget narrative. In this case, I'm selecting fringe benefits. Move along and enter the justification information. Enter the cash or in-kind expense and click Add. You have now added a new item to your budget narrative. If at any time a line item needs to be modified, click the Edit link. Make the modification and remember to hit the Save link. To delete an item, click on the Delete link for the desired line item. A confirmation screen will appear. Click the OK button to continue the delete process, or click the Cancel button to return to previous screen. Let's take a look at the 120 salaries and wages item. If this item is added to your budget, an additional section will appear on the screen that requires the user to enter at least one job title and either an annual or hourly wage or an in-kind value of staff time that is supporting the program. For purposes of this training, I have already pre-filled the justification for my salaries and wages, and I have entered a cash expense. Note that at the bottom, I must create job titles that will total $159,000. Once I indicate all the positions that support the $159,000, my expense totals will match. Currently, the red exclamation point icon is indicating that my expense totals do not match because I have not entered any job titles in my field. Let's move on and enter job titles. Note that now I have entered each one of my job titles and their hourly or annual wage. My job totals match. Once the expense salaries match, your icon will change to a green check mark. Let's continue to complete our budget narrative. For training purposes, I have completed my budget. There are a couple of things to note here. Notice that I have included as an item a 500 line. I have given quite a bit of detail to this line, noting that I'm purchasing student desks, tables, bookcases, etc. Notice that the total cost of my purchase is $3,450. There's a little formula that you can use so that you won't overmatch the purchase of any 500 line item. Note, this is a 30% match county. I will take the total cost of my purchase and divide it by the whole, 1, and the 30%, 1.3. This will help me to arrive at exactly how much of this purchase will be supported by JCPC funds and how much will be supported by the cash match. On the revenue section of this teaching, you will note that the application will look for the cash match to support the capital purchase. Now that we have completed our budget, let's take a look at it from a print preview. Go down to the print preview icon and click the budget narrative. Here's my budget narrative. Notice for continuation programs that it is in the same format, with my job titles listed at the bottom of the page, supporting the 120 salary line. Your budget narrative can be saved to your hard drive as well. Now let's go to the print preview in the budget line item summary. Click on the icon. Notice that as we completed our budget narrative, the line item summary budget pre-fills. This too can be saved on your hard drive. Now let's go to the sources of program revenue. Now that we have completed our budget narrative, let's take a look at the sources of revenue that are supporting this budget. Click on the Sources of Program Revenue link. This page allows us to enter information about all of our sources of revenue. There are a couple of things to note here. First of all, the local match rate. This is automatically displayed on the screen, and it's based on the county selected on the program record. Note that the in-kind is pre-filled as well. This is because we indicated in-kind in our budget. We are now ready to indicate our sources of program revenue. Click on the Edit icon. There are a couple of things worth noting on this screen. Scroll down to the bottom and notice that at the bottom of the page that a cash match is required for our capital outlay. Since we haven't entered any kind of cash in this revenue page, we have a red exclamation point here icon because the application is looking for cash to match the capital outlay in the amount of $796. Let's enter our revenue. As I begin to fill the revenues, notice that I just completed the county cash line. Let's scroll to the bottom of the page. Notice that my icon has changed because I have received $5,100 from Orange County as a cash match. I now have the cash required to purchase my capital purchase. For purposes of this training, I have pre-filled my revenue fields. I want to show you what happens when I click on the Save button and there are errors on the screen. Let's click on the Save icon and watch what happens. I immediately get red exclamation point icons indicating that I have failed to do an action. I must enter the revenue source of the in-kind and the cash. Let's do so. Now I have corrected the problem. Let's move to the Save icon again. Click on Save. I have now completed all the sources of my program revenue. Notice that the revenue totals match. The total source of program revenue matches the total that I have completed in my previous budget narrative and also the cost of my component. Let's take a look at this revenue page in a print preview. Click on Section 8 Sources of Program Revenue. For continuation programs, this page looks exactly like the Sources of Program Revenue page in your program agreement. You may also save this section to your hard drive. Let's move on and submit our program agreement. You are now ready to submit your program agreement. Be mindful that every county has different beginning and closure dates for their request for proposals. You must submit your electronic program agreement in a timely fashion in order to be considered for JCPC funds within the county of your application. To submit a program agreement for review or for approval by your local Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, return to the Program Information screen by clicking the name of the program at the top of the screen. Click on the link. This will return you to the Program Information screen. Click the Submit link. Once the Submit action has been completed, you will receive a message that your program agreement has been verified and is ready for final submission. Click on the Submit link. A program agreement submitted successfully screen displays. The status will also change from pending submission to submitted on the Program Information screen. Let's view our program agreement one more time. Go to the View link under Actions and click. When you are ready to print all sections of your program agreement, go to the Program Information page, click View, and then scroll to the bottom of the page and click on Print Preview. The Print Preview button takes users to the following screen. Click on the section linked to print or preview that particular section, or click on the Print All Sections link to print or preview the entire program agreement. The document will open in a PDF format, and this document may be saved to your computer and or attached to an email. Now that you have submitted your online NCID application or program agreement for JCPC funding, let's look at how you may track the status of your program agreement. Let's go to NCID and log in. Since the system recognizes my login ID, it will take me to the program agreements that I have completed. So let's view our program. Click on the View link. Notice that we are now at the Program Information page. Users of NCID have designated security, whether it's your local JCPC, the county, or the North Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice. and those with designated security can approve or deny the application. You will be able to view and check on the status of your program agreement by coming to this page. As decisions are completed, users with designated security will enter approved or denied decisions. And as these decisions are being made, there are dates that are required in the decision making. If your program agreement is denied, there may be reasons noted. Let's take a look at that. Go to the View link and click. Now let's click on the Decision Link tab. Let's say, for example, you completed your program agreement and your local JCPC has awarded you funds, but is requiring that you revise your budget based on the amount of the JCPC award. This is where you would find out that information. Once you have completed your application with your local county's JCPC, please consult with your JCPC chair and area consultant as to directives on how to submit your program agreement after you complete this online application during this first year of the new NCID application usage. Let's go back to the Program Agreement Details tab. Click on the tab. You will notice here that the date of last return will be entered into the system. All movement of the document will be tracked by NCID. On behalf of the North Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, we thank you for your participation in this NCID training and hope that you have found it helpful with the usage of our new online application process. NCID will continue to be a valuable resource for you as a program provider by offering client tracking record resources and record retrieval for the youth served by your program during the second phase of development. And finally, data reports will be made available to your JCPC Council and our North Carolina Legislature to report on the positive effects of your programming provided to youth in our state. Thank you for your continued interest in the youth of your county and the state of North Carolina. And good luck with your NCID application for funding.